You're welcome. Can everybody hear me? Great. Thank you. So we'll just settle together as we let other people join. We're just really letting ourselves arrive here, feeling how our body is coming to stillness. And really honoring and celebrating this movement to come together and spend time together, meditating and reflecting, listening within. Okay, so really warmly welcome everyone. All the beings who are gathering here, including I can see cats and probably Lester's dog is here. No, all of it, like gathering all of our being and all of our beings here. So just for any of you who are new, to say, yeah, really wonderful you've been able to come. And I'm Sumedha. So I'm now one of the core teachers with SMS, which feels like really a real blessing. And I'm delighted to be here. And I'm going to be holding the next 2 weeks. So with Michael, the director, we talked about possibly doing kind of 2 weeks that are linked together, which is what I'm going to do. And of course, like they can stand alone as well. But just so that you know, next week will be something of a follow-on as well. And yeah, for those of you who are new, what we often offer in these sessions is a period of chanting together. Chanting being a very ancient practice where we can really tune into the vibrations of different teachings and the teachings themselves. So actually, I realize a lot of how I remember teachings is because I've chanted them over time, which is really lovely. That was the part of the original function of chanting. So we do some chanting and we do a guided meditation together, guided or it can be quite silent as well. And then I'll offer some Dharma reflections at the end. And that whole piece will last about an hour. And so in an hour, you'll be welcome to leave or welcome to stay for 15 minutes at the end where we can discuss, and you're welcome to ask questions as well. So, okay. And the theme I wanted to talk about today is a theme which is not that much talked about, but it's actually one that I really love, which is so the scary word is renunciation, but it's it can also relate to like simplicity of heart, simplicity of how we're receiving and relating to experience on many, many levels. And it's a subject that I really love, actually. So hopefully that will come through, that it's not such a scary topic after all. So, And as a background to that, actually doing some of the chanting can be very important, because a lot of the chants, it can like align the heart with a sense of honoring something deeper within ourselves. And also we'll do some chants on the Brahma Viharas, so qualities of metta, compassion, joy, equanimity, which is really important for helping the heart to stay soft and supple in its listening, which the Buddha really emphasized as being very important. So welcome to all of you who are just joining again, and we'll go into the chanting. So I'll put the link to the chanting book in the chat, and I'll also share screen, and I'll tell you which chants we're doing as we go along. So there's the link to the chanting booklet, and I will share screen. Some people are still just joining. Okay. So can everybody see that? No, you can't see a shared? Yes, great, cool. So I'll scroll down to page 3, and we'll start as we often do with the homage to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. So homage to the 3 jewels, so to that which is awakened, to the teachings, and to community, which includes like honoring this community as we come together, honoring our own listening heart, honoring our own willingness to learn. And as I've said in previous sessions, I chant in the Thai style, but please feel welcome to chant however you know. So Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Sanghang saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchāmi. And then we can scroll down to the next page. So the recollection of the triple jewel. But sometimes it's really good to read these outside the session in English and contemplate, not a dogma, it's a reflection, and how that can help to support our practice. So Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijja charana sampano sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisadhamma sarati sata deva manusanam buddho Bhagavati sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo sanditiko akariko ehipasiko opanayiko pachatang veditabo vinyuhiti supatipano Bhagavato sawaka sangho ujjupatipano Bhagavato sawaka sangho nyayapatipano Bhagavato sawaka sangho samicchāpatipano Bhagavato sawaka sangho yadidam chatari purisayugāniya tapurisa pugala esa Bhagavato sawaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyaketam lokasati. And then we'll go down to a couple of the teaching chants. So, the reflections on universal well-being, which was one of the first chants that I learnt, really beautiful chant. And this is a chant on the 4 Brahma Viharas. So it's really for contemplation and for practice. And as we chant this, we can really spread, diffuse these aspirations, intentions, and energies out into the world that we're part of and to all the beings that are suffering in this world. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. And the last chant is on those same qualities and really touches in with that sense of finding them within our being, in our being, and diffusing within our own being and into this universe that we're part of. So. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. So letting the vibrations of those chants help our mind and our body to settle, if they're resonant with you. I really love that one of the words that is used for compassion in the early teachings is like anukampa, which means to resonate with, to vibrate with, like a violin string. As we come into a space of listening within, we can allow ourselves to resonate with that which feels aligned, settling, connected in our being. Just inviting our being to settle and gather here, maybe letting the way our body has paused. It's still alive, it's still present here, but we've paused our settling of the body can be a very good reminder to our mind that we can just settle here. Not excluding what may be coming with us. So maybe we've been in a lot of movement, maybe there's some agitation, concern, maybe the well-being. Just letting all that arrive and settle here. Noticing how the earth underneath it is supporting us. And we're connected to the earth. Noticing also the space around our body. So noticing if there's agitation, if there's restlessness, anxiety, joy, whatever our whatever experience may be coming with us. Notice that the whole of our being is welcomed in the space that is here around our body. Notice that the space around your body isn't pushing you or pulling you or judging you. Very gently and openly receiving the whole of our being, the whole of each of our beings. How often do we give attention to the space of receptivity? And we notice that also our mind, the awareness, the listening that we're bringing. And we notice how spacious, open that listening can be. It can be something very, very helpful to practice with. We take a sense, experience a sound. Maybe we can hear a bird song or a sound somewhere in the street. And notice that your awareness is vast and open enough to just receive that sound, sometimes very far away. And notice the sound can just arise in awareness and cease. If we want to add something, I like, I don't like. But we don't need to add that necessarily. And we feel some well-being, some warmth, some aliveness in just this experience of noticing the awareness is open, receiving a sound as it arises, as it ceases. And the wonder of that. Can be such a helpful practice for starting to notice that our listening, our awareness is very spacious. that we can start to notice what we're adding to an experience. Not to say that we never should, but just can we have some space, some choice, some connectedness in our response. We come to the end of the meditation, staying in touch with this sense of spaciousness of listening and of alignment inside that can receive that which is arising in our experience and can make even a tiny space to start to notice what we're doing, whether that's helpful, whether that's harmful. And there's no rush. This is an ongoing practice. And that really helps us to deepen in our presence. So when you're ready, we can end the formal meditation and bring that listening and conscious presence into, as we open our eyes, as maybe we move our body. It's helpful to shuffle our body a little bit, feel our aliveness coming with us. So, as I said at the beginning of the session, I wanted to touch on the theme of renunciation as something that can be really, really, it can be a really powerful support in our practice. And it's not something that gets a lot of airtime because it's often it can well feel, if I say renunciation, what happens? It's like often we kind of contract a little bit, or we think it's going to be something imposed on us, or some sense of right and wrong. Am I going to be right? Am I going to be wrong, etc.? And actually, for me, this practice is one that really helps us to deepen our presence and our sense of fullness in life. And as Michael said in the send out this week, I was a monastic for some time. So for 10 years, I was a monastic, and people go, "Oh, that must have been so hard." And actually, as other monastics here will know, it was a really deeply nourishing experience. And I mainly left because I'd gone there very young. So I was probably like, well, I probably need to do some integration elsewhere. And also the institution was had some pretty hard edges that were a bit patriarchal edges that were pretty difficult to navigate. Like my experience of what is seen to be a renunciant life was very deeply nourishing, because it helped me to find a route of listening and presence within that I hadn't previously found. And it continues to, the interest in how to stay simply in presence with things is something that still is very deeply nourishing to me. So, and it touches on a big, lots of big areas in teaching. So it's classically said to be the third of the paramīs, so the third of the perfections, that help us to cross life's floods. So they help us to see through the areas where we're getting confused. And the context in which this teaching is given is one in which there's a recognition. So in the Buddhist teaching, there's that fundamental recognition of we do suffer, and there are causes of suffering, and we can start to understand those. And we also can notice in our own minds potentially that we have this tendency to add all the time to things. So the Buddha called this papanca, or proliferation, that we adding all the time. So in the guided meditation, I was guiding, can we just notice a sound arising? And actually we can have that moment of connected presence. And then we can notice very immediately, path, 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 path. I like, I don't like, I want, what is that? Is it a chainsaw? What are they doing? We very quickly go into that whole chain. And that's not to say that we have to ignore that, but it's just to know that we are vulnerable to that tendency. And can we slow ourselves down and create enough space to notice what we're adding? So that's part of the context for me. And I have to admit that when I came to Buddhism, I was, I kind of had a tendency to want to get out of the world, let's say. So kind of quite nihilistic tendency. And then I came to the monastery and I heard this teaching which is called the Fire Sermon, which the Buddha gave to a group of monastics. And it said, like, literally, you chant. So we would chant this together. The ear is burning, the nose is burning, the eye is burning. Our thoughts are burning. Burning with what? Burning with the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. And I was like, oof. That is, for someone who has nihilistic tendencies, that's not very, it's kind of like, well, okay, get out quick, And that is one part of the teaching, which renunciation can really help us to start to look at, but we don't have to, it's like not our senses that are the problem, it's what our mind is doing with those things. And if we look at the world today, we can really see that there is a lot of greed, hatred, and delusion. Like there's a lot of suffering happening in the world, as we know from the situation in Palestine and Israel, as we see from the planet, as it's really suffering from our sense that we can just consume relentlessly. And so one of the translations also of papanca, so this tendency to proliferate and to add all the time, or to want something more from an experience. Interestingly, one of the translations that Thanissaro Bhikkhu gives is objectification, that we make ourselves an object and then we just have to consume or get other objects or use other objects. And actually the invitation to me of renunciation, or to look at that, to come out of that spell of, well, I am this solid object and I need to consume or get that, is how do we come into a process of experience and into a sense of presence in experience. And this is what the Buddha was pointing to, like talking about dependent origination, and with different teachings where there is an invitation to just be present in our experience and to notice. So there are several things that the teaching on renunciation comes in the context of, that I'd really like to highlight, so that it doesn't become a thing of like we're just putting down experience and getting out of it. So remember that the Buddha talked about middle way, first of all. So he himself had come from a very privileged background, and he first of all became very extremely ascetic. So very much pushing away material experience, bodily experience. And through doing that, he realized there was no liberation in it. So he, in the very first teaching that he publicly gave, he talked about the middle way between grasping and aversion. And the invitation to simplicity is to find that place in the heart where we're between grasping and aversion. We're in a place of presence. And even in one of the early teachings in the Anguttara Nikaya, he talks about renunciation it's called a discriminative teaching. So whatever practice we're doing, does it foster wholesome states or unwholesome states? And this is really, really important, because if we take the idea of renunciation and we're like, oh, well, I should just stop this or that, we're not reflecting about the effects of that. So renunciation isn't, it's not like a one size fits all, you know. Like at a certain time in my life, I was way too ascetic, and I was like, and so it was like, okay, so I need to eat more and sleep more. You know, it was like renounce my wanting to get out of the world, if you like. And so we have to find what our tendencies are. Is it helpful? Is it fostering wholesome states? Because remember, the Buddha said that when we're fostering unwholesome states, we can't see clearly what is for our own well-being, for the well-being of others, or the well-being of both. This is foundational in the teachings, that when we're coming to a space of clarity, we start to understand our deep connectedness and where we're causing harm. And the invitation to slow down and to question what we're doing, which is implicit for me in this simplifying, is just that. Where is there connectedness? Where is there a sense of presence that can start to discern what I'm adding to an experience that is harmful or not? And so I just wanted to say more about this teaching on renunciation, to really soften its sense of threateningness. And then next time we can look more into some more like body-based practices, which can be very, very nourishing, sense-based practices and mind-based practices, where we're really benefiting from a sense of simplicity and well-being that just slowing down can bring us. So as I've said, the renunciation is technically the third of the paramī, these perfections that are said to help us to cross life's floods, cross through the confusion that we have in life. And Ajahn Sucitto, who is one of the UK teachers in the forest tradition, he points out how much renunciation is linked with the other two first paramī, which are generosity and sila, or ethics. And so already, like, feeling that impact, that renunciation is not something that takes away. It can be something where we're tuning into a sense of ethics, a sense of where am I connected in life, and a sense of generosity. How can I adjust how I'm relating with life in a way that is respectful to my own being, to the beings around me? So for me, that's very, very beautiful. It's a very, very beautiful invitation. as a way of maybe looking what we're adding to experience that is not generous, that is not in line with what our heart wants to offer in the world in terms of harmlessness, say, which is there in the ethical teachings, the precepts. And can I let myself let that go? So that's very, very different from a sense of one should or should not be doing something else, some action. So I just wanted to read out a translation of the precept that I got from Jaya Rudgard, and I think she got it from Thanissara, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a very beautiful translation of the precepts that very often, like in meditation, we want to get on to working with our mind and, you know, letting go of suffering and all of that. But these precepts are like really, really foundational. And you'll see they're linked with this concept of renunciation, but not, it's like only if we're making a big deal out of it. We're always making choices. We're always making choices like every time we respond in life, we're making a choice. And the invitation of this teaching on simplicity or renunciation for me is to just be aware where our choices are coming from. And so in the context of generosity, in the context of sila, say we have the precepts as reminders that are like, for me, they're like road bumps, you know, or where am I starting to behave in a way which doesn't feel very aligned, doesn't feel very good, doesn't feel very reflective. And so just very quickly, the one translation of the first 5 precepts, which just indicates to me how much choice we have in everyday things, is, so the first one, I undertake the training to refrain from intentionally taking the life of any living being. And the positive version of that, may I treat all life with kindness, care, and respect. So is that a hard sense of renunciation, or is it a sense of what do I want to offer to my own being and the world that I'm part of? And it includes one's own being. Where is one being over harsh towards oneself, over judgmental? So more and more we can gather in experience. The second precept, I undertake the training to refrain from taking that which is not given. May I honor what is given, and may I practice generosity. The third one, I undertake the training to refrain from misuse of sexuality in the senses. And the positive version, may I relate to my senses with care and respect. It's like, how often do we really honor that which is coming through our senses without moving on to the next thing, which is the movement that the world we live in tends to encourage. May my senses be a vehicle of true connection with life and intimacy with life. So that coming back to, say, a sense of simplifying our experience so that we're truly connected in that spacious awareness that the meditation was giving, and how do we wish to respond? So these things are all mirrors. They're like multiple mirrors that help us to reflect and align and find space and respond. And then the last 2, I undertake the training to refrain from false and harmful speech. May my speech create happiness, harmony, and understanding. And I undertake the training to refrain from intoxication, which leads to carelessness. May I cultivate mindfulness, clarity, and wisdom. So sometimes it's really helpful to tune into, okay, so we're constantly making choices, and sometimes we're letting go of something in order to foster what? What are we cultivating with each choice? So I find this practice to be one that helps me to come into a sense of deeper connectedness and then more clarity about what we want to shape up from there. And some of the some of the translations given of renunciation by other teachers like Gil Fronsdale, they really emphasize this sense of like renunciation not as being a harsh thing, but as something that brings us lightness of being, something that brings us joy. So another translation of like is like releasing, unburdening, freeing. So these are all things to help to nourish that maybe hard perception of what it might be doing, because actually it's, for me, it's a real invitation to deepen into the life that we're and to connect there and let our choices come from there. Related to the sense of making sacred. So where I'm in contact with life, can I make that sacred? I'm making a sanctuary of our heart and mind. So so like Ajahn Sumedha, one of my main teachers, he used to say, kiss the joy as it flies, you know, quote William Blake, kiss the joy as it. So this isn't about not being in contact with what is beautiful, what is nourishing, what brings us joy. It's about finding actually more of that presence and richness and capacity to be connected in this moment through making sacred the contacts that we have. And so there's another lovely teaching about the senses. So I'm aware I need to end soon. But there's another lovely teaching about the senses which very much balances that teaching from the fire sermon. So there's, you know, we might have this, the senses are burning with greed, hatred, and delusion. There's another lovely teaching called the Bahya Sutta, where Bahya asks the Buddha for a teaching, and the Buddha refuses because he's on arms round. And then Bahya asks him 3 times, and the Buddha doesn't refuse if you ask 3 times. So that's a good tip. And so he says, this beautiful, beautiful teaching: in the seen, let there be just the seen; in the heard, let there be just the heard; and through the senses, in the cognized, let there be just the cognized. So there's that sense of peacefulness of meeting that which is arising, which can be very, very deeply nourishing and very deeply anchoring, and brings us back to our sense of like genuine connection and can have very like complicated teachings about non-self, or teachings that seem to be very far away, but actually our sense of self can be transformed in that connectedness if we just allow this space that can be covered by the word renunciation, but actually it's an invitation to deep space, to sense into that interconnectedness, to the openness of our listening, to the capacity of our response. So it's very deeply linked to a lot of the wisdom teachings and to a compassionate response in this world. And it can feel good. So, you know, so Thanissaro Bhikkhu, he also wrote an article called Trading Candy for Gold. And it's, you know, it's basically that, well, if you're getting a greater happiness, then you naturally let go of, you know, whatever else you might be holding on to. And so when we start to taste this well-being, it's like it just becomes less interesting to chase after things that are less nourishing. And that's not as a should or a shouldn't or a judging or a, you know, but it's like our sense of what is nourishing to us changes, which can be a very deep sense of realignment. So yeah, this can be a very, it can be a very gentle and very deepening teaching. And it can also sometimes give us the an edge from which to see, okay, well, actually, no, really, that behavior isn't something I want to continue. Where can I find the kindness to hold myself as I let that go? Or where do I find the listening about, from this sense of connectedness, how I actually want to be in this moment, in this world? So this is a very, it's a very, very powerful tool to give ourselves. So I hope there were some things in there that was helpful, and anything that wasn't, you can renounce it immediately. So and for anybody who wants to, you're very welcome to stay on for 15 minutes and we can have discussion and questions. And before you leave, I will also put in the chat, there are some things coming up with Sacred Mountain Sangha. So as part of the Sacred Practice series, there's the Foundations of Buddhist Mindfulness, which is a 4-week class, and it starts on the 26th of October, and it's 1.5 hours per class, and it's donations based. So the link to be able to register for that is in the chat, and it is starting pretty soon, so do register if you want to. And it's donations based. And then above that, there's the link that if you want to support Sacred Mountain Sangha with a donation, the link is there for that also, and to the YouTube channel where you can find all the recordings of these teachings. So thank you very much for your presence and your listening. And anyone who wants to stay on, you're very welcome to for another 15 minutes.